Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to teach you how I make Texas style pork ribs on an offset smoker. Let's get the pit fired up. Okay guys, today we're going to be using some pork spare ribs. In my opinion, these are a better cut than the loin back ribs, or otherwise known as baby back ribs, because these are actually cut off the back of the pork belly, which means they're going to have a much higher fat content running through the meat. And as we cook these down, the fat's going to render and it's going to give us a more juicy and tender rack of ribs. To start, we're going to flip these ribs over. We're going to take our boning knife and we're going to come through and take off these thin scraggly bits because they're just going to burn up in the cook and they're not going to taste very good if we leave them on the rack of ribs. So we're just going to take our knife, we're going to come through here. This little bit that's running on the back of the bones here, this is actually called the skirt of the ribs. So we're just going to pull this off. You can see here, it's a lot of sinew, a lot of silver skin. You can just see how tough it is. It's not going to break down at all, so we're going to throw this away. And keep coming through here. Perfect. Up the top here, we have a bone running all the way through, which is called the chine bone. This is a separate part to the rack of ribs, and it's not going to create a nice bite of barbecue because it's a really, really hard cartilage, and even on 6-7 hours on the pit, it's not going to break down. So we're just going to come through and we're going to try and clean this up, square off the top of the ribs and create a nice uniform shape that's going to come through here. You can notice here, there's a lot of flappy meat, no bones, no cartilage running through here, but because of it, it's only going to curl up over time in the smoker and dry out, so there's no point in keeping this on. So I'm just going to flip the ribs here because I'm left-handed. So I'm find the chine bone. You can see here where the ribs start and where the chine bone starts. I'm going to find that gap. And we're just going to follow a nice uniform line running all the way through, and we're going to curve it down. Make sure you don't throw this away. You can pull these bones out here, and we're going to do that right now. And this makes for some excellent burger or sausage mince. Now that chine bone's been removed and we've got a nice flat top, we're going to find the smallest bone on the end here, and we're going to take the closest side to it, and we're just going to come through and square off the rack of ribs. Again, don't throw any of this meat away, just remove the bones. It's going to make for excellent sausage or burger patties or even like mince for your pasta sauce. Now, you'll see on most videos on YouTube, Instagram, wherever you want to find your tutorials, they'll tell you to remove the membrane. But in my opinion, there's no point. When these are placed directly on the rack, the membrane, cooked at the right temperature, is actually going to crisp up and it's going to actually hold the rib together. And if you can see here, there's a lot of fat that sits under the membrane. And if we were to pull that off, we're going to risk losing a lot of that fat, which is going to keep the rib nice and juicy and tender. So we'll just keep coming through, tie up all these scraggly bits. See here, it's a little bit flappy. Oops. Follow through there. A little bit off here. Really not much to it. Beautiful. Now we're going to flip these ribs over and we're going to work on the top side. This rack of ribs, we got a bit of a bum steer in the package, so we're just going to have to come through here, pull that piece off. Top side definitely needs a lot less work than the bottom. Thinking I'm going to remove this, you can see just here the bone is poking out from the meat, and 6-7 hours into the smoker, this bone is just going to completely pull away. So right now, to avoid splinters and actually hurting people, if we left this on, we're going to come through as close as we can to the end of the bone, and we're going to cut this straight off. Now that we have the ribs all trimmed up and looking really, really nice and uniform, we're going to apply a small binder of olive oil, and then we're going to use a simple rub of just salt and pepper. So just take our olive oil, give it a nice spread across here, and we'll rub it into the meat. Nice even coat, doesn't have to be too much, just enough so the salt and pepper actually sticks to the ribs. Come through. Looking fantastic. Now I like to apply my salt and pepper separately. Normally for briskets, beef cheeks, I do a 2-to-1 ratio in a bowl and just toss it. But for pork ribs, being that there's a lot less meat on the bones, I like to apply the salt and pepper separately. So first things first, we're going to take our salt and we're just going to come through and create a nice even coat on the back of these ribs. Making sure to get a nice even coat, not overlapping. That looks fantastic. And then we're going to do the same thing with the pepper. Get the top side here. Nice even coat. That looks fantastic. We're just going to pat that in. And then we're going to flip the ribs over. And we're going to repeat the process on the other side. We're going to take our olive oil, apply a little bit to the top and rub it in. Take our salt. And we're going to apply a nice even coat across the top of the ribs. Come through with the pepper and we'll repeat the process. Make sure to get all the edges. Fantastic. Alrighty, now that we've got the pit rolling between 225 and 250 degrees Fahrenheit, we're going to take our pork ribs and we're going to place them on the further side of the smoker away from the firebox. And we're going to have the thickest end pointing towards the fire. Take our second rack here, place it down. You can bunch these up. The more you uniform these ribs on the rack, the better they're going to keep shape during the cook. Tuck them up, looking nice. Edges are all pushed in. Beautiful. We're going to close our lid down and we're going to maintain temps between that 200 and 250 degrees Fahrenheit for the next couple hours. Then we'll come back and give them a spritz if they need it. All right, guys, it's been a couple hours now since we put these ribs on the pit. And before we open up and check on their color and see if they need a spritz, I want to talk about the 3-2-1 method and the reason why not to use it. For those of you that don't know, the 3-2-1 method is 3 hours of smoke, 2 hours wrapped in foil, and then 1 hour unwrapped, covered in sauce. The reason I'm not a fan of the 3-2-1 method is because there's way too many factors to take into consideration, like the size of the rack of ribs, how much meat is on the bones, the ambient temperature outside, and what temperature you're running your pit. A combination of all these factors means that you're never going to get the result you're looking for. Everybody has their own preference on how they like their ribs cooked. Some people love it fall off the bone, some people like that competition bite through, and some people like a bit more on that chewy side, more like a barbecue rib as opposed to a slow smoked or slow cooked rib. Because of this reason, you can't be using the 3-2-1 method to cook every single rack of ribs the exact same way. My personal preference on a perfectly cooked rack of ribs is that bite through like you see in competition barbecue. And to achieve the perfect bite through, we need to be focusing on the color of the ribs and the tenderness. If you stick to maintaining the temperatures in your pit, looking for that color and tenderness, you're never going to be disappointed with your end result. With all the money you're spending on charcoal, wood, and the meat itself, you really don't want to be taking the risk and restricting yourself to a certain time limit, which is going to compromise the overall result of your cook. But enough about the 3-2-1 method. Let's take a look at the ribs and see how they're coming along. These ribs are looking absolutely fantastic. You can see the smoke has penetrated deep into the meat here with that dark mahogany color running all the way through. With just salt and pepper on these, I couldn't ask for a better color. We still have a little bit of a way to go before we actually wrap these up. You can see here the meat and fat is just starting to tear, but we want to break these down a little bit longer, render down this fat. That way they spend less time steaming in the foil and we can give them more time to take on some smoke flavor and break down. You can see the ribs are trying to push out all their moisture content and the fat is starting to render. Because of this, the ribs are actually staying quite juicy and I don't think we're going to need a spritz on these at all. After just a couple of hours, these ribs are coming off and going into the foil wrap. You can see here, they're starting to get really flexible. We're starting to get some drawback on the bones just here, and I'm really, really happy with the color. The fat is rendered nicely, nice and juicy. If I squeeze hard enough, you can even see the juice coming out of the corner there. You know that because of this, the fat is rendered perfectly, and they're time to go in the foil. Okay guys, you'll see a bunch of videos online on how to cook pork ribs, and when it's time to wrap the ribs in foil, they add a lot of brown sugar, butter, and honey. This is going to completely ruin the overall taste of your rack of pork ribs. The best way you can complement your ribs is by picking one of your favorite barbecue sauces and adding it to the wrap. And for me, that's the Heavenly Hell's Championship Candy Glaze. Made in Australia, boasting flavors of chipotle, cherries, and orange liqueur, this is a flavor packed sauce and it complements pork ribs perfectly. When it comes to the finished product, this sauce doesn't just add an amazing flavor to the rack of ribs, but it also creates an incredible glaze that glistens in the sun. It's a little bit tangy, a little bit sweet, a little bit spicy. It's a perfect all-rounder sauce that's going to impress your friends and even win you first place in competition barbecue. So we're going to take our sauce and we're going to pour it into a saucepan so we can simmer it on low heat because we don't want to add cold sauce to the wrap. Now that the sauce has been poured in, we're going to throw this on the stove to slowly heat up. Alrighty, to the foil, we're going to add a thin layer of our sauce on the bottom, just the whole way across, just a little bit. Then we're going to place our rack of pork ribs face down right on top of the sauce. We're going to grab our sauce again, throw down a pinch more, and we're going to wrap these up. I like to take 2 sides first, like this, pinch the corners, bring these up, same with the other side, nice and tight. Then we're going to place them back on the pit face down. The reason I like to wrap them in foil as this is because when we need to check on them for tenderness, all we need to do is unfold these flaps and we can probe them. Alright guys, a couple hours later, these ribs are coming off and we're going to open up the foil and check for tenderness. So you already see we're pretty much there because we have great drawback on all the bones, all the way across. We're just going to take our thermometer and we're going to give these a probe. And that's absolutely perfect. We're going through, still a little bit of tension, but not straight through where they're just going to fall off the bone. Awesome. So now we're going to flip these ribs around. Oh, have a go at the color on them. Absolutely fantastic. Now that we've flipped these ribs over, we're just going to dip them into the sauce that's sitting in the bottom of the foil. So the tops are nice and covered. And then we're going to create a little foil boat around these ribs. Just going to take the edges, fold it up. And then we can throw these back on the smoker to let the glaze set, and we'll get a nice sticky and shiny rib. Alrighty guys, 15 minutes later, these ribs are coming off the pit. The glaze is set and these are looking absolutely perfect. I'm just going to pull these out and you can just have a look at the color on them. Shiny, sticky, absolutely delicious. So we're going to place these down the board. I'm going to take some of the juices that were left in the bottom of the foil and just gently pour them over the top. Lovely. Pat it in. Again, just have a look at that color. Absolutely perfect. So we're going to flip these over just so we can cut through the bones. Take our first slice here. Beautiful. Leave those rest together. Flip these back over. Amazing. Have a look at that. Absolutely perfect. Still super juicy whole way through the pork rib. I think these have come out absolutely perfect. The glaze is set. Lovely smoke ring on either side. Not too heavy, which means you've got nice clean smoke on it. Tender. It's going to be delicious. Alright guys, I can't wait any longer. So we're going to take our first bite. Oh my god. These are the juiciest ribs I've ever made. They're absolutely incredible. Oh. Spicy, salty, that salt and pepper mix, absolutely perfect. Dripping with juice. I could not have asked for a better rib. Perfect. We're going to pick up this rib and I'm going to do a bite straight through the center and we'll see how it turned out. Absolutely perfect. Hang on guys. Amazing. As you can see there, perfect bite through, clean to the bone, doesn't fall off, but with a nice, clean, easy bite, goes straight to the bone. Absolutely perfect. And that's it. That's how you make Texas style pork ribs on an offset smoker. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support helps my channel grow and I can create bigger and better meals for you to enjoy. Cheers.